Hi there, Eleanor.
Hi, Rosa.
So I think now you can see my this one. Let's see what is being shared. Yes, that's good.
Sorry? Okay, I'm gonna see whether I can connect the other phone as well.
Welcome everybody, people are joining. Hi, we are just setting up and waiting until people have joined.
Susanna, perhaps you can join for audio. You can join by phone because the video is okay. It's just the audio that's not okay.
Okay, people are joining. We still wait for 2 minutes. Susanna, have you joined again?
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you. Very
yes.
good.
Okay. I'm connected on the cell phone now for the sound.
Very good.
I think it's a good idea. Yes.
Okay, good. I think we can start. I welcome everybody for our webinar on the VAC4EU catalog kickoff. We have at the moment 23 colleagues joining, and we have 5 persons in the panel at the moment. Welcome everybody. This is the program that we want to go through today. So first of all, we will hear about how the catalog became what it is now, and we go through the structure and the general setup with Rosa, and we have a presentation of Susanna from the Minerva project, the history of the tool. Then we have Eleanor Haidt from University Medical Center in Groningen, who is running the Molgenis software and actually developed the catalog technically. And then we have the functionalities. After I go through navigating and showing around in the catalog, we have the functionalities. Then for the DAPs to update the content and keep it updated by Julia. And then we want to have an outlook and a discussion on the future of the catalog, moderated by Rosa. And then afterwards we have questions and discussions that I will moderate then. Good. You are generally muted, the attendees, but if you raise the hand or if you ask a question, I will see it and I will interrupt and take your questions and your comments Please make it a very interactive thing. We are very happy to receive your comments and the questions right away. But I think now we can start, and I give the word to Rosa.
Thank you so much, Daniel. So welcome everybody to the VAC4EU catalog. You see here the entrance of the portal, let's say. We are really, really proud of this work and of having this tool among the VAC4EU tools. I will just very quickly introduce how the content is structured. As you can see, there are 5 sections in the catalog currently: institutions, data sources, studies, networks, and data bank. Next slide, Daniel. So this structure stems from a conceptual framework that was developed in the Conception project. As you know, a lot of our tools come from that project, and this was qualitative studies where we really analyzed very deeply 21 data sources, heterogeneous data sources. Next slide. On next. Two. Yeah. And this is basically the conceptual framework, and also another click, Daniel. So we have the description of that. Another. So what are the actors that are represented in the catalog? What you see in that L external in this figure are institutions. So the actors are, the most important actors are, of course, institutions. And the first group of institutions that you see here on the top are those that, for many, many reasons, multiple reasons, mandate and sustain data collections. Normally, this happens for purposes that are not research, and they will collect, we call those data collections data banks, and we characterize each data bank with the prompts, meaning the reason why a record comes into existence, like a hospitalization or a contact between a person and their primary care provider, or a death. So these are examples of prompts for specific data banks, respectively hospitalization, primary care medical record, or death registry. And the underlying population are the persons for which the data bank collects data. So it's not the person that are in the data, it's the person that have the potential to be in the data. For instance, the underlying population of a death registry is not the persons who have died, it's the persons whose death would be captured if it happened. And now, so this is the generation of the data. And then when we use data to conduct studies, often we have these organizations that we call data access partners that have the potential to put together at the individual level many data banks. And we call data source a collection of data banks that have the same underlying population or overlapping underlying populations. There are some data sources that have just one data bank, but many data sources have many, many data banks. Then we go back to institutions, we have data access partners and investigators, and together they do studies. And we call the union, the semi-stable union of some institutions to conduct studies, we call it a network. And this is also something that is represented in the catalog. An important actor that is not in the main page, but it's still very important, is the common data model, which is a tool to conduct studies by converting data sources to a same structure. Next slide. Now, what is the purpose of the catalog for our studies? For all the actors, investigators, DAPs, programmers, thanks to the catalog, all the information about how the data in each data bank is generated, what is the content, the context, what is the data model of each table, what is the ETL to common data models, which could be many, all of this information can finally be browsed from a single point, and the interface is easy to access thanks to Janice that Eleanor and Eric will explain in a moment. And for institutions that are DAPs, the information is it now can be kept updated in an agile manner and in a single entry point. Next slide. So I give the word to Susanna that is going to tell some of the story of this tool.
Okay, hello everyone. Next slide. And I have a bit of a disconnect with the GoToMeeting, but if this is the slide that starts with a Minerva and has an owl, then we're on the right slide. Minerva actually stands for Metadata for Data Discoverability and Study Replicability in Observational Studies. And it was funded by the European Medicines Agency. As you may recall, some years back, the European Medicines Agencies and the European Union Heads of Medicines Agencies set up 10 big priority recommendations for big data in the European Union. And the Minerva project addresses 3 of them. One is the recommendation 3, which is the identification and characterization of data sources. Recommendation 2, evaluation of data source quality. And recommendation 5, the transparency and reproducibility of studies. And so this project came up, this call for research from the EMA came at the right time, where a lot of European projects that had been going before, like you have heard, IMI conception, but also other IMI and EMA funded studies came about. So to take the next step in terms of metadata characterization. And for the purposes of the Catalogue and Minerva, the metadata are set of data that describe and give information about other data. More specifically, the information that inform the generation or the prompt that Rosa was just covering, the location and the ownership of the data set, what the key variables are, the format, the coding, versus they are structured or unstructured data, and then what is needed to enable an accurate identification and qualification of available information. And you see in this map of Europe, we had a very large consortium. We were 18 research centers in 12 countries, covering 15 RW population data sources and patient registries, also in 12 countries. And some of them are the usual players that you would say automated data sources that cover populations. But I think we also had some data sources that are not so well known. We had the Estonian Biobank with genetic information from the Estonian population, a Spanish network for clinical registers for patients with inflammatory bowel disease, ENEDA, and then a newly qualified registry in Europe, the European Blood and Marrow Transplantation Registry. So how did we address the development of metadata? Next slide. You will see the first preliminary metadata were derived from a lot of work that was done for certain partners, selected partners that evaluated 57 publicly available documents and conducted structured interviews with external experts from European and international RWE research networks. Odyssey, Aetion, ISPE, you name it, they were all well represented here. Our first metadata list was reviewed by the EMA, and with their feedback, it was presented to stakeholders during a public technical workshop in April of last year. And throughout the rest of the project, the final list of metadata was completed, also including the results of the pilot, and they were 436 variables characterized, of which 241, a long list, were labeled as priority for regulatory purposes. And that was the target of the pilot with the data sources that I presented before. And you will see all this information is available in the public domain. All the reports are there, including the list of the metadata. Next slide. The proof of concept metadata catalog that our colleagues in Groningen developed, not surprisingly, coming from the framework that Rosa was describing earlier, had these 6 highly interconnected domains: the institutions, the data banks, the data sources, the networks, the study, and the models. And I won't elaborate further because Rosa has already done that. Next slide. What we did in the pilot of the metadata collection in Minerva was to evaluate 6 specific use cases that were outlined in collaboration with the EMA. The first one is, so how would different parties in different scenarios populate or use the data from the metadata catalog? So the first one was the data access partner provides expertise throughout the cycle of a study. The second, if another investigator wants to use the catalog throughout the life cycle of a study. Third, a programmer is programming a study and wants to see how programming was conducted previously. Fourth, a consumer of evidence, that may be somebody from the public, the press, a regulator, an external, wants to assess the reproducibility and the quality of evidence generated by a study. Fifth, a fair process launched by an external organization, including a data originator, populates the catalog. And sixth, an institution with research capabilities wants to become a DAB for a data bank and or a data source. The report of this is also available in the public domain. And the idea was to develop this catalog as an interactive environment for exploring and interacting in all these scenarios. And next slide, last one. There's a lengthy report with all the details that summarizes our recommendations. First of all, that fair and open science principles should be followed. As you know, FAIR stands for accessible and interoperable, findable, and reusable. And so this catalog, its evolution should be accessible and interoperable with other FAIR metadata catalogs. The content, the metadata should be findable and reusable. And to be reusable, we found in the course of the pilot, also not surprisingly, that the catalog needs to be kept updated and be compliant with data protection rules such as the GDPR and the national requirements. And that means that also there needs to be financial resources to provide it for this kind of work. There has to be also this derives from GDPR requirements. There has to be an organization that needs to be appointed as a data controller. And there has to be a common agreement among all stakeholders that it is justifiable and it is acceptable to collect the information in the catalog, either directly from organizations that access the data banks and data sources, or through linking to publicly available information from the data banks, including other FAIR metadata catalog. And something that we feel it's very important to highlight is that as catalogs get developed and populated and updated, it's very important to keep in mind epidemiologic principles. So to keep in mind not only the data in themselves, but what's their applicability for epidemiologic research. So it was over a year of a very exciting exercise involving many colleagues, and we're going to have some presentations at ICPE. And I think the next iteration and in the evolutionary level is going to be the VAC4EU catalog. So over to you.
Thank you, Susanna. Very nice. So then maybe we continue with Morgeni's software and Morgeni's catalog from Eleanor Hyde from UMC Groningen.
Thank you very much, Daniel. Perhaps we can go to the next slide immediately. People can see the name of our company. Morgenis is a team of about 35 to 40 people within the Department of Genetics, within the big teaching hospital here in Groningen, the University Medical Centre. We're in the north of the Netherlands. My name is Eleanor Hyde. My colleague Erik Swart is here. Erik is programmer who's the techie guy who can answer all the technical questions we might have. My role is project manager, and in that sense, I'm here to explain to you a bit of background. What is Mogenis? Who are we? What are we doing with this catalogue? I think we'll have some more demonstrations of the actual catalogue after this presentation. So I won't be doing any demo, but just to give you a bit of background. So perhaps we could go straight through the first 2 slides. The next one, please. Thank you. So how did it start? Well, we actually started, my manager, Professor Maurice Sweat, he started Mogenis about more than 10 years ago. And they started with biobanks. And I don't know how much experience you have at biobanks, but the BBMRI is a big European network of biobanks. BBMRI stands for, I had to look it up, for the actual proper, we call it BBMRI the whole time, Biobanking and Biomolecular Resources Research Infrastructure. So that's where this idea from the catalogues all started. So BBMRI is still going. There are national nodes in various European countries, and I'm sure you all know your own national node. Could we go through the next slide, please? So we started with the biobanks, but then I'm not sure how many of you will have heard of the Life Cycle project that is just literally finished. It is a consortium of cohorts, so not data sources and data banks, but cohorts. And so that's not the same. It's not like real world evidence, which we have in IMI Conception and Minerva and VAC4EU. But these are patients who then get followed for various reasons. And we want to actually enable research over those different cohorts in one go. If cohorts are in one consortium, then members of that consortium can use the data within the consortium for research. For example, a lot of research now the exposome, which is a big European drive at the moment. So the point was that you can do analysis without moving data anywhere. That's the important thing with the Lifecycle project. So the next slide, please. And so now we come on to in history, started with the biobanks, moved on to expanded towards cohorts, and now we've expanded to include the health data, which VAC4EU and Conception and Minerva use. In fact, in this slide, I could have added the VAC4EU logo. This is real world evidence, and I'm sure Rosa can speak much more knowledgeably about it than I can, but it's a slightly different system to how we've got it set up for the cohorts. But the beauty of Mogenis is that you can build it to how you need to have it. And so here you can see, you have to really zoom in, but you can see this is just to give you an idea. You have institutions, you have data sources, you have data banks, and they can all be interconnected. And so you can zoom in on the data how you want to go in. So the next slide, please. So this is just showing that this is all using Mogenis, so the biobanks, the cohorts, and you can see some more projects for the cohorts, athletes, and longitudinals you can connect. And also VAC4EU, of course, and Conception, Minerva, all building towards, we're hoping, eventually, one integrated catalogue. But we're not there yet. Next slide, please. And again, please. And yeah, we just keep clicking through. And maybe another, yes, thank you. So this is just to give you an idea of the areas which we work in. So Conception and VAC4EU Minerva, that's in the multi-center research, but we have the biobanking I was talking about. We also have a big part of the department works on rare disease, where you have very little data about very few people, but you want to be able to use that as much as possible. And also we have high performance computing center, where we have do the sequencing for our genetics department. Okay, next. I'm thinking at the time, Daniel, how much time do we have? Daniel can hear me. Or you muted maybe. I'll keep going. Right.
Well, I think, yeah, please go ahead.
Okay, so this is so it's built on Mogenis. It's open source software. That's the whole point. Sorry, Daniel.
Yeah, I was muted. Just go ahead. Yes, it's good.
Okay. Great. So it's built on Mogenis open source software. So we, as I said, you can build the catalog to how you need it, but we need to always think about what do other projects need. Perhaps one data bank wants it this way, but the other data banks might want it a completely different way. So we have to always think within the consortium, how do we want it? And also bear in mind, if we want our data to be fair, as we always talk about, findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable, then we need to make sure that we don't build a structure that's not usable anywhere else. So those are two things we always have to bear in mind. What do people want from each particular project? What do people want from outside the project? So open source software. And if we go through to the next one, this is also you can configure it, as I say, you can configure it into how you want to have it. There's no data in the catalog. That's always good to remember. There's no data in the catalog. There is data about the data, there's metadata, but there's no data in the catalog. So you have to decide how you want to, and that's Rosa has been doing that with Daniel. In Conception and Minerva, we're doing that as well. How do we want to present the important metadata? Because you can decide hundreds of particular variables which you might want to include about your data. But you configure it. So the next, please. Yeah, so as a result, this is what we have in the cohort end of things. You can see there's an EHEN, European Human Exposure Network, UChild cohort network, Athlete Project, eForwarders. We want to bring things together, bring cohorts together so that so across consortium, people can go and search for data as well. And the next one, please. And this is within the lifecycle UChild network. Because we do the harmonization, we can see which cohort is where. And I know that in Conceptions, it's slightly different. Maybe Rosie, you can say something about that a bit later if necessary. But this is just to give you an idea. We can say, okay, this is the common data model. This is not per study, but per cohort, it is being harmonized like this. And you can see it in this way. Okay, relevant functionality. Thank you, Daniel. If we keep whizzing through, this is what Susanna and Rose were talking about. I won't go through this, but we have data sources, we have data banks, we have institutions, we have common data models, we have studies, we have networks. All of these are all visible in the catalogue. And you can go and, as I said, you can go and find the information, particularly zooming in how you want to find the information. So if we go to the next, this is, yeah, Rose showed this as well, and I think we will see this when we have the demo, but this is the home page. And you can zoom in as how you want to get to the data. And this is, yeah, this is pretty technical now. When you go into the data sources, you see a list of the data sources. Next slide, please. Zoom in on items, see what details you want to see. And behind that, next slide, please. You have the data dictionaries. This is an example from the Minerva study. But again, this is something that gets decided within the projects, and all the data sources and data banks can latch onto this. And then we're talking about data management. Next page, please. Next slide. And next slide. So you can use forms to enter information. And next slide, please. You can use Excel sheets to enter information. Julia has a lot of experience with that, I think, using Excel sheets to upload information into the catalogue. And it's next slide. Yeah, you can do comma separated variables, all sorts of options for uploading and downloading. And we use templates. It's very important that you upload the information in the right format so that it gets straight into the catalogue without any error messages. And last slide, if you have any more questions, yeah, here's some more information. But you can click on those links if you get the PowerPoint slides later. Bit of a whistle-stop tour through Mogenis, but I hope that was informative. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Eleanor. Thank you. So now we would go into how it is looking like actually. If there are any questions, maybe we can make a short break and ask if there are any questions before we continue. Nobody? Good. So now this is how it looks like at the very moment. Good. If you go to the VAC4EU homepage, I just show you how to access the catalog. So you go to the toolbox, either here, toolbox, or in the list above in the menu. You have all the tools running at the moment. Then you have here the catalog. You run the tool. you will be directed to this page, and then either you have already a password and a login, then you can click to start Catalogue and log in, or here you can email us and then you will receive a login credentials from us or from Morganis. So if you click on the Catalogue, you will be directed here. I already signed in, and this is the main screen that you see. You already saw this on slides. So we will at the moment concentrate on the top colored squares, where this is how you can browse it. So you can enter either going through the institutions, information about institutions, information about the data sources, information about the data banks within the data sources, an overview of the networks that we collaborate, and then here something that also more needs to be developed more to go into study specific information. So if we go to the institutions, you will see this screen. You have a few functionalities up here. You can filter, you can put filters. At the moment there is the type and the country selected. So this is the type of institution, all stakeholders, and then you have the countries here below. If you enter more filters here, they will be shown here on the left side. Here you have the column selection. This will be shown in the table here to the right. So here you have all the columns that you could select, and then here you have a download. If you put the download on this page, this is what you will get. Here I have it here. So you will see a download of the current site that you are, with the institution names, the names, and the websites and all information that has been provided by the institutions. If you then go, so this is now what we have populated for VAC4EU. We have these 13 institutions here. You will recognize yours. This is also where you will update on your institution information. If I select here RRS, you see information on the institution of RS, a short description first, and then the provider of the database, how the database is called, with some more information on the database level. And then you have another description of the database and the data banks. And then if you go into the database name, you have the data source. So actually now you are on the level of the data source. And in the data source, again, you have all these on the right. You see the different paragraphs that will show up. So it is first an overview on the networks that they operate or that they entered in the catalog. We have the PEPV network that is running at the moment, all the EMA studies, the ROC20, ROC12 studies. Then we have here VAC4EU and others, conception, of course. So this is what they have provided. Then you can populate a list of collaborations if you want to enter that, and other information, some qualification on what quality qualifications or other qualifications the database went through. You can describe access, and you have the quantitative descriptors. This is now going on the level within the data source of IRS. You can access a list of the data bank. And now I go into the birth registry. And Rosa, please jump in if you want also to describe something or say something. So here again, you have, this is now the data bank of the birth registry level. So you have here the networks again repeated, and then also here you have the information, the description of this data bank, and then the updates, And then now here you have the different tables. So I go into the table of the Cat 1, and then you will be taken to actually the ETL level. So this is what you can see at the moment in the ETL description.
Sorry, this is not ETL. This is the data model of the table.
Okay.
There is no ETL here. To go to the ETL, you need to click on top.
Yes, this one here.
This is the ETL. Yes.
Yes, exactly. So here at least you can see the table names.
This is the name of the
variables.
variables. This is the name of the variable, their description, and their vocabulary.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
This is the original data. It's not in the common data model. This is the original one.
This is the original one, and then if you go into the mappings and the ETL, then this and then this will become study specific now. For example, for the conception common data model.
No, it's not study specific. It's ETL, which will always. It depends on the common data model. So whenever you map to the CDM, it will be the same. ETL will be the same.
Good. Okay, and then is there another level deeper? I think we are now on the lowest level, no?
Yes.
Yeah, very good. Okay, good. So this is the level of the common data model, then of the conception common data model 2. And now I get a call here. Good. And then, so what else? If we are going back here to the catalog, then we can go to the data. So this is all what we went through. You go to the data source, you go to the data banks, and then you go down to the common data model variables. And here we have this one for the studies. So there is information on the studies. We have started on the past J&J, on the past RZ. The access study has been completed. You see here like information about access, the institutions that are included. And if you go back here on the networks, it's also a tab that we can develop where we can describe our vaccine monitoring collaboration, VAC4EU, with all the data banks listed. It is now entered at the moment for RRS and the French data, the SNDS. Okay, good. I think this is more or less how it looks like at the moment. You want to add something, Eros, or anybody?
Yeah. Well, what's important, I will go back to this in the last moment of this presentation, is that the only sections where we have a curated catalog are the institutions, the data sources, and the data banks. So we are in the process of finalizing the curation of those sections, while networks and studies are still under development.
Yeah, exactly. And how to curate this and how to update this, I think this is now Julia who will tell us. Yes, very good. I have a question here from Ursula. Let me just quickly look at it. One second, you can see that. So one challenge of using data from different data sources. Yes, Ursula, you can unmute yourself. You want to?
Yeah, hello. No, we can put the question to the end. There's no need to answer now, as you prefer.
Okay, very good. Let's take this to the end then. Very nice. Thank you. Anything else? Any questions to that part or until now? Okay, good. Then I give the presentation to Julia. 1 second. Okay. I think, Julia, you can now share your screen.
Okay, perfect. Can you see my screen now?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Hello, everybody. Thank you, Daniel, for introducing me. I was involved in the uploading and editing the content of the VAC4EU catalog. So today I'm going to show you how to edit what is already on the catalog and how to add something that is still missing. This is the home page of the VAC4EU catalog, and you can see the different sections that can be edited and edited in the same way using the same actions. So what I will say, for example, for the data source can be applied also for data banks or for institutions. So I would like to start from the data sources, because I think that along with the data banks, these will be the ones that will be edited most frequently from by you. So I enter the data source section, and you can see here the list of the units that are presented here. And you can see also some buttons. There is the button plus that can be used to add, in this case, a new data source. And then there are, next to each data source, there are 3 buttons, a pencil that can be used to edit the content of the data source. These are the symbols that can be used to make a copy of the data source, and also a basket if you want to delete the data source. In particular, if you want to edit the content of a data source, you can both click on the pencil here, or, for example, entering into the data source and click on this pencil that is here on the top right, and in both cases this interface will appear. Here you can edit, change whatever you want just by writing, for example, in the empty fields, or, for example, by selecting the correct option in case of fields that are pre-filled, and add some other information, whatever you want. And then you have to click on Save Data Source. In this page, you can see all the information that are related to the data source, in this case, for example, PediaNet, an overview, the underlying population, the contents, and some other information. For example, if you want to edit some data bank, here is the list of the data banks that are related to this data source, and you have to click on one data bank you want to edit, for example, Esenzioni in this case, and this action directs you in the specific section of the data bank Esenzioni, where there are all the information regarding this data bank, and in particular the dictionary. For editing the dictionary, you can click on this link, and you are directed in the data model, the dictionary of the data bank Esenzioni, where you can edit in the same way as I showed you previously. So if you want to add a new variable, you can click on the symbol plus. If you want to edit some variable, you have to click on the pencil, and if you want to delete a variable, you have to click on the basket. So for example, I click on the pencil, and here you can find all the information regarding this variable. You can add or change whatever you want, and then click on Save Source Variables. In this case, the mapping and the ETLs are not present yet, but I think will appear in the next future. Just to show you how this section will appear, I'll show you the ARS data sources, for which some ETL are already uploaded on the catalog. I go through the SDO, then through the dictionary, and here you can find the mapping and the ETL of this data bank. So I go, for example, in the table events, and you can find here the ETL of this table. I think that also in this case, a pencil will appear here on the top right in this black bar. So you will edit also the ETL just in this also in this page. And this is the general way to edit and add something new in the catalog, but I'd like to give you some practical examples of an editing. So I go back to the home page. I use a data bank from us because I'm more familiar with it. So I search here for Fed, for example. I select the data bank, and I go through the dictionary. Here there is the data model, and for example, if I want to add a new variable, I enter here the name, for example, ID fed to ARS new. I enter also the label, that is fed to identifier. I have to select the data dictionary. In this case is fed, and the table also is fed. I select, and then I save source variable, and this new variable appears here. If I realize I want to add something else, I click on the pencil and add whatever I want, for example, in the notes, in the description, or something else. Another example I want to give you is the editing of the description of the data bank fed. So I go back through the fed and click on the pencil. In this case, I can add some information, for example, for the start year, if I remember correctly, is 2004, or something else. For example, the time span description. I know that this table is updated every 3 or 4 months, 3-4 months, and save, and click on Save Data Banks. So this information will appear here in the population section. And if I want to delete it, I come back in this interface and change whatever I want. Yeah, this is all from my side. I don't know, Rosa, if you want to add something else or give some other example, please tell me.
No, I think that's pretty clear. It's true that the ETL editing is still not perfect, and it's also true that the content that currently is available on the catalog, again, institutions, data sources, and data banks, was uploaded by us based on the interview answer sheet and on the ETL templates that are available in the VAC4EU SharePoint. And of course, all DAPs are now invited to enter and edit the content. We will also activate a quality check cycle. So if you input some content that we consider to be not correct for some reason, we would reach out to you and ask you to edit it again. All DAPs are, of course, accessed with writing rights, while other members of VAC4EU currently can request access with read rights. And Daniel, I don't know if you want now to go quickly on the development slides.
Yes, I will change the presenter. So
I think, Daniel, that we can, we agreed, Eleanor, right, that we would send to you a set of emails that may want to have read rights access. So maybe we can start, Daniel, with the participants to this webinar, which we can assume are interested in accessing the content, okay? If we can go to the scenarios, next slide. Next slide. Yes. So the tool is now available. The DAPs can complete the information as they see fit, and we will conduct quality checks on the updated information to make sure that the tool evolves correctly. Possible future developments that to be agreed with UMCG, which is our great partner in this tool. We need to complete existing functionalities. The updates to the ETL pages is not functional yet. And what we would really like, Susanna showed you the Minerva recommendations. We would like to be more and more compliant with those recommendations. The first thing that we really miss is a proper development of the study section, which could in principle contain a study-specific version of the data source description, because in some studies only some data banks may be included, or maybe, you know, a data source evolves in time, but in an old study, an old version was available. And then improve the FAIR requirements. So we would like to have proper persistent identifiers. We actually hope that EMA will lead the way into that, but otherwise we need to find a solution ourselves. Let's see. And we would really love to make the catalog interoperable with other catalogs, specifically at least other catalogs that are homogeneous, for instance, the conception catalog. So some of you have both an entry in the VAC4EU catalog and an entry in the conception catalog. It would be nice if updating one entry would also populate the other, like we had recommended in Minerva. And then it would be maybe an idea to conduct a survey on you after you have, all of you have started using the catalog for a while, conduct a survey, understand whether there are requirements to create new functionalities. And this is it. I don't know if there are comments, Eleanor or Daniel, on this idea. Susanna, please.
Yeah, I think one idea to maybe flesh out a little bit more in detail in a follow-up seminar would be how specifically the catalog can support developing a study and also following the study. So basically to see some practical points of how the research team involved in a study leverages the information that there is in the catalog upfront and how they can help to contribute to update and improve the information for the future, and a few things like version control and so forth. I think that would be really useful for a follow-up session.
Yes, unfortunately, thank you, Susanna. Unfortunately, during the Minerva project, we didn't have time to properly design and test the study section, and it would be great, of course, to do so in VAC4EU, but this is one possibility. Yeah.
Yeah. And if I understand you correctly, Susanna, you would mean everything that is going beyond the common data model descriptions of in the ETL, so that we could even go into study variables or something like that.
Daniel, we did design this into the Minerva. So in the metadata list that is implemented in the catalog, there are a lot of variables that we have not seen because we have never populated them. But yes, of course. So once we go really to the detail of the Minerva recommendations, you will see that yes, there is exactly what you're saying now, supporting the development and reuse also of variables.
Yes, I think now
one aspect to keep in mind is to also avoid duplication of effort. We need to monitor closely how the new EMA data source catalog would look like, how the revamped EU pass register will look like, etc. Because I think there's lots of institutions being pulled in all kinds of directions to provide information about data sources and studies.
Yes, Susanna, you're right. That's what we recommended, that they create persistent identifiers. So so that my data source has a specific identifier, and I can make our catalog interoperable with the EMA catalog, with the conception catalog. That would be fantastic, of course. That's it on the development, Daniel. I think we can go to the discussion now.
Very good. Thank you very much, everybody. Very good. Thank you, Julia. Thank you, Rosa, Susanna, everybody. Very good. So now I think we can take some questions and some comments. Maybe now it's time for the question that I have now here from Ursula.
Yeah, hello. Thank you very much. I found this very interesting, and I would like to echo on what Susanna said, that it would be really even more useful to have a session on a concrete use case, because this remains like quite on a theoretical level, and it's not so easy like from 1 hour to understand thoroughly how this can be useful. Then I think that would be really make a difference to have that. And then just a question, Rosa, you mentioned that this might also be linked to the EMA catalog. So you refer to the NCEP?
Yeah, because the Minerva project was somehow, so the recommendation that we gave to EMA were in the framework of the renovation of the NCEP data source catalog and of the UPass register. And the EMA is currently progressing in that direction. And now our recommendation was that please, they would make the new catalog interoperable with the others, because you know there are many catalogs around in Europe, not only ours, not only the VAC4EU or the conception. There are many like these. So a lot of this information is actually compatible. And this idea of fair, find them all interoperable, accessible, interoperable, reusable, it requires that those who develop catalogs are open to exchange content. And yeah, we would love that EMA
so there's the chance that this might happen then. Because I was wondering from my own side, so if I have to feed in the VAC4EU catalog and the NCEP catalog, this is like doubling the work with different formats and different things. So yeah, okay. And then the question I raised at the beginning is not really like a detail of the catalog, but speaking about this work and about using databases, the data banks from different data sources in studies together. Have you ever had a discussion on how you would handle the difficulty in using different ICD version codings? Because I think this is one of the challenges, and I think that once we start having these sources like the catalog, it might be interesting to also provide like recommendations or instruments or whatever to use the different coding systems.
Yeah, that's really the creation of a variable, right? So when you are in a study, you want to create, I don't know, to label the persons in the study population who have experienced an infarction, for instance. And you want to do that in your study number 1, in the 3 data sources that contribute to study number 1. You document it in the catalog, using possibly version control in the ICD-9 or ICD-10, whatever. And then when you do a second study, you would like to be able to access the choices that were made in study 1, so that you can either replicate them or progress and build on top of them. That's the idea, of course, of the study-specific version of the section of the catalog. Yeah.
Are there any other questions? If not, we are end of the hour. I would like to thank everybody, and of course, this will be the recordings of this webinar will be online on our website. And if you have any comments or any questions, please reach out. We can keep the discussion alive online, emails.
And Daniel, we will provide everybody in this webinar with access. Okay, so we will share now with Eric and Eleanor the list of email.
Very good. Okay, good. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.
Bye.